I want to spin the computer around and just ask you the questions.
Oh, I don't know how that would go. What makes a Barndo Co. build a barndominium? What is the process to build on your own land? Do y'all subcontract out septic and well installers, or do we need to do that on our own on the side?
This is a weird question. I've tried to answer it a few times. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Barndo Show. And today I got the lovely Miss Jenna here
What's
to do
up?
a Q&A.
Oh, yeah.
This is always fun.
Always love our
I want to spin the
Q&As.
computer around and just ask you the questions.
Oh, I don't know how that would go.
So we try to do these as often as possible because we have tons and tons and tons of people that ask tons and tons and tons of questions. And some of them are directed towards us. Some of them are just random questions that we pick up in the communities that we own and monitor. But Jenna does a great job of kind of scraping through those and finding, unique questions as well as some that just pop up hundreds and hundreds of times. And so we've done a few of these, and today we felt like it was time to do it again because she has a pretty extensive list of questions.
I do.
Was like, you've got to do a Q&A.
We have to do another one.
It's cool. We'll let you on the show without a Q&A. You just tell me when.
All right. So my first question, we had someone comment in one of our groups, just why do people reference a barn, a barndo, when in no way it resembles a barn in look or construction? So my question for you is, what makes a Barndo Co. build a barndominium?
Yeah, so this is a weird question. I've tried to answer it a few times. Barndos have become a style, more than anything. Whereas originally it's a means of construction, but it's just kind of taken on a style. And we've even seen it like with some of the the growth and things that we've had. And I don't think, I'm not arrogant enough to think that we've inspired this solely by the Barndo Co. But we do see a trend where other builders who build conventional homes are now trying to tap into the market space and offer barndos. And they're regular homes, and they put some different finishes on them and sell them as barndos. And so I could see that from the outside looking in as a style of home, right?
Yep.
It has this like metal siding, a metal roof, or maybe it has this kind of low country farmhouse look to it. And so, you would be crazy to be in the construction industry and not want to tap into the absolute robust desire of people to have them. And so I can level with this person to where, like, how can these be called barndos when they look shaped nothing like a barn or whatever? But we even get that, and we do build true post-frame style. So I think it's a complex question. So what is a barndo? Whatever you want it to be. We're at that point now. I've got friends that build stick-built houses, and they put metal siding on them, and they call them barndominiums, and people buy them, and people love them, and, it is what it is. Like, who am I to tell you that's not one?
Yep.
What is one? I don't know. If you want one in the truest form, I guess go buy an old barn and finish the hayloft and live in it. But the way that we do it is a post-frame construction. It is a style of build that has lended itself to building barns over time. It was a more affordable way for people to build big covered shelters to get animals or equipment out of the weather, or even grains or feed or anything that needed to be dry. It was a way for them to do it with less materials, and get these there. Now, what we've done is we've come in and heavily modified that because we don't build agricultural buildings. We don't build, industrial buildings. We build residential construction only.
Yep.
So we took the tried and true methods of post-frame construction, and we blended it with some things that are done in the residential construction world because it's more conducive to residential living. And so we've kind of blended those two things together. But the load of our homes are completely post-frame loaded, and they're built in the way that a post-frame home is done. Now, the way we infill lumber, that's changed over the years. We used to be more conventional with purlins, and then we went to bookshelf purlins, and then now we do vertical infill with 2x6s. And the reason behind that is it's just more conducive to residential dwellings, like to just do it that way. It speaks the language of the trades. It solves a lot of problems for people in the field, like when they're putting their electrical in there. There's the typical ways they can mount boxes. When homeowners move in and they want to hang pictures, they're not stuck hanging it with a drywall anchor or
Mm-hmm.
trying to hit one of these 2-foot spacings or whatever that may be inside that house to where they can't get the height they want when they mount their TV or whatever. And then we don't have to come behind it and put blocking. We don't have to put
Mm-hmm.
special blocking for cabinetry and stuff like that. We can integrate that with vertical infill framing because most of the industry is designing products, features, and installation methods for vertical framing. So
Mm-hmm.
we're building a post frame structure and then we're vertically infilling it. And we have barndos that we've built that are post frame construction that have hardy board siding and shingle roofs on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the outside looking in, it looks more like a conventional home. And only until you pull down and look into the structure can you understand that that's actually a barndominium. And so I think it's just the wider that the construction method becomes available to people, you're going to have people that have a different taste, but they like the superior structure quality of a barndominium build. And then you have people that live in parts of the country where red iron or steel frame buildings are what they've always considered to be a barndominium, and they can't even wrap their mind around the fact that we would build a wood structure and call it a barndominium.
Mm-hmm.
I see that comment all the time. And then you have areas of the country like the Midwest where pole barns have been a thing, and then they see the way that we construct a pole barn, and they're like, well, that's not a pole barn at all. Yeah. And so you're never going to have a solid opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to have to embrace the fact that everyone has an opinion. Yep. And so what is a barndominium? It's whatever you want it to be. I have absolutely nothing in me that's going to go out here and bash someone who built their dream home, and they used a different means of construction than what I prefer.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But I think more so than anything, it's a style of home. A lot of it for us is how it's constructed, not necessarily how it looks. Granted, most of ours do look like what a conventional or a traditional barndominium looks like, but that's not always the case, and there's certain circumstances where we're using wooden trusses. There's certain circumstances where other means of construction are more acclimated for that. We have an entire line of product, SFH, that's just a stick frame house, to where we come in and we utilize some of those traditional methods, and those are not barndominiums, but they're built off of our plans. But so I think it's just a question where some people just get hung up on an idea, and the thing is, look, if that's not a barndo to you, don't build that one.
Mm-hmm. But
I think getting in a position where you're trying to like judge what someone's building and saying, well, that's not a real barndominium. I mean, what is one? What is one? Mm-hmm. And I think the actual definition of one would not resemble much of anything that people are building.
Yeah, you'll get a different perspective every definition that you ask.
Yeah,
so.
But it's a common question, and people ask it all the time. If someone were to come in and say, hey, what is the biggest difference in what Barndo Co. is building versus what every other person on the block is building? Mm-hmm. I would lean into the method of construction. I would lean into the structural superiority of what we're building. Mm-hmm. We do this apples and oranges comparison all the time of like, hey, us versus them, and who's them? It could be anybody. It could, like, in that reference, we make reference to conventional construction. We make reference to different types of pole barns and different types of pole barn construction. We make reference to different types of steel structures. It's really, I can only speak to what we do. And what we do is a post-frame hybrid, which gives you the superior strength, stability, and low maintenance of a traditional pole frame barndominium, as well as the convenience of a construction that's conducive to what everyone expects when they're building a residential home. We just eliminate some of those additional steps required because, we're trying to speak the massive language of trades and products in a multitude of states, in a multitude of counties with a multitude of subcontractors. So we have to kind of meet in the middle there. So that's the best way I would know to answer that question.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've already hit some of these, the answer for this next question, but someone asked, are your barndos typical metal shells or built like stick-built homes? Because I know people see our posts on social media where they see the wood framing and then the metal trusses. So you touched on our post-frame hybrid a little bit, but go into that a little bit more in terms of like customization and ceiling heights and whatnot.
Yeah, so and that question's a great question because in the industry, you see more shell builds than you see anything because typically there's people that build really good barns and there's people who can build houses, and there's not a lot of people that build really good barn houses. And so we're a turnkey builder, so we're kind of looking at it from both sides, both perspectives. If you go out and hire a company that builds shells all the time, they don't care what you're doing with that building, right? like, that's cool that it has windows and doors on it, but they don't care. They're going to go in and erect the building, and you have an empty shell, and they don't care. They don't care. You could put hay in it. It could be a paintball course. You could put a pickleball court in there. You could turn it into a home. You could park your truck in it. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to build the shell and move on. Whereas we're looking at it going, is this a residential structure? Because if it is, then we're a good fit for you. And if we were to build a shell, you're going to get a substantially more built out for you with a shell with us versus
Mm-hmm.
other builders, because we're not just coming in and building a pole frame building. If you don't know what that means, if you could visualize for a second, if you just had a 40 by 60 build, right? 2,400 square foot.
Mm-hmm.
If you hire a pole frame builder, they're going to come in, they're going to set posts in the ground. They're going to put purlins on the outsides of those posts. They're typically going to put those purlins on like a 2-foot spacing, and then they're going to screw metal into those purlins. And so to visualize that, a post is vertical.
Yep.
A purlin is horizontal, right? And that's what gives the building some structure and rigidity. And then once the metal sheeting goes on or the siding goes on, it ties that building in together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from the inside of that building, you could use it for whatever you would like.
Yep.
If you were going to live in it, then you would have to come on the interior side and build in either some infill framing or put some additional purlins on the interior side of that structure to build a wall cavity. So that there's more that goes into it. The way we build is we're going to go in and we're not going to put poles in the ground. We're going to build a structural foundation because we know that that's what typically lends itself to a more conducive environment for a residential build. We're then going to mount and anchor our posts above grade, and we're going to go in and do the same thing. We're going to build the pole frame structure. We're going to put a pole up vertically. We're going to attach it to a metal truss that goes across to another post on the other side that's perpendicular to it and is or parallel to it, and we're going to attach that to the concrete on the other side. In between those posts, we're going to vertically frame with 2x6s, 16 inches on center, which starts looking like a stick-built home. So I get it. If you see a picture, it's going to make you scratch your brain a little bit because it doesn't look like what you were expecting. You're like, well, that's just a stick-built house. It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a post-frame barn. But we are stick framing in between it. And to be honest with you, from a load perspective, it's absolutely not necessary. It's not necessary. It's not even required. But when you get that shell with us, we're also going to go in and we're going to put a sheathing all the way around that house to where we could attach metal to it. You could put vinyl siding on it. You could put brick on it. You could put stone on it. You could put hardyboard on it. You could do whatever you want to the outside of that building, because we take that additional step and sheathe that house. Then you go to the roof. Up on that steel truss, there's little cups, and then you have purlins that are running across that. So you got girts on the wall, you got purlins on the roof, and typically those purlins are 2 foot on center.
Yep.
And a traditional pole barn builder would go in and screw the metal straight to those purlins. And so when you walk in that building, typically you would either have some kind of metal building insulation, like a vinyl blanket with a little bit of fiberglass on the back of it that was draped over that structure before the metal went on, or some people don't even do that, right? They just put metal straight to girts on the sidewalls and straight to purlins on the top, and you would see the metal and everything inside that shell. With us, we're also going to go in and deck that entire roof with sheathing, and then you could put architectural shingles on it, you could put metal, you could put standing seam, you could put whatever you want on your roof. And so I guess the difference would be when you walk into a Barndo shell, it's built out for residential living. It's built out for you to be able to take it from there, run all your utilities, your MEPs. You know, it's already ready for drywall. It's already ready for all the finishing touches. And it's built like a residential dwelling so that you could go and hire any number of subs that don't have to have experience with barndominiums because we've bridged the gap. So you've got the superior strength and structure of barndominium or post frame, but you also have the conventional methods for any trade to be able to come in and attach into that the way that they would know how. So again, that's the biggest difference. And in shells, we don't build a lot of them but to be honest with you, and I talked about this with Mike Moon, the pole barn guru, there's not a lot of advantage to the shell. That's the easy part. Building the structure is the easy part. All the finishing work is the hard part. So it's like, do we do them? Yeah. Is there some people that are just like, they want to get their, roll their sleeves up and get dirty and work on their homes? Cool. We'll come in and build you a shell, but when we build it, it's going to be substantially complete. And often is the case when we build a shell, all the interior framing is done as well for every room and every layout. And, we're tying in floor systems. If you have a second story, like it's essentially constructed. It's just there for you to finish.
So I just started interviewing some clients for their post construction and how their experience went with Barndo and all that. So one of the clients that I actually just interviewed earlier this week, he was talking about how our turnkey process was one of the biggest things that brought him to us. He didn't want to be hands-on the project at all. So doing those shells, you're going to be hands-on, but there's also we also take care of that whole entire turnkey process, so you are not hands-on.
Well, I think most consumers in America don't want to be hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
In the Barndo world, it's kind of been a different story because typically you're having to find someone or find some company that can provide you a kit, right? And then you've got a certain contractor that will install that kit, and then you got to go find other contractors to come in and finish that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times people were at least playing GC of their project, right? General contractor.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hiring all the trades and doing all the stuff and managing it. And there's several turnkey builders, but in the grand scheme of things, there's not a lot.
Yeah.
And so for us to be able to bring barndominiums to people with a full turnkey service platform,
mm-hmm.
everybody wants it. Like if you look at us and say, hey, you guys build a couple hundred homes in a year, how many of them were shells? 3.
Yeah.
It's a very insignificant amount. Does it mean we won't do them? Absolutely not. We'll do them. Because again, we try to meet people where they are, and some people want that, but the vast majority of people want a turnkey experience.
Yes, absolutely. So my next question is, do y'all subcontract out septic and well installers, or do we need to do that on our own on the side?
We prefer to handle it. However, this is one of those moments where you can absolutely sub that out yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some things where we need to be in harmony in how this is operating, right? Like mm-hmm. when it comes to grading, when it comes to different things, like, and some of this is a learning curve because clients don't know what they don't know. And so when you get into an environment where, you hire someone to go do your own septic, right? Could they put it in? Can you handle that? You hired a professional to do your septic? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when it comes time to grade that and put that house on a, build out the pad where we're going to construct, if that wasn't taken into account, right, and you've assumed full responsibility of your septic, which a lot of clients do, when we come in and we grade that to elevation, we're also presenting options to you, like, mm-hmm. hey, to prepare this pad and do an elevated pad where, when from the flow that you need to go from your home to your septic, because we all know crap rolls downhill, right? Mm-hmm. To get that to happen, this is what it's going to cost you in grading. And some people will say, no, I don't want to do that. Like, let's build, on the ground that's there. Let's don't mm-hmm. elevate it at all. I don't mm-hmm. want it elevated. In some instances, you have clients where you got to do something. There's only 2 ways to make something level. You can mm-hmm. either cut in, right, on
mm-hmm.
the low side and bring it flush to the high side, or you can, or cut in on the high side and bring it flush to the low side, yep. or you can build up the low side to match the high side. And either way will work.
Mm-hmm.
In every situation, either way works. The problem is then when it goes time to go to your septic, you may have to put in a pump. And clients get overwhelmed with this because they want to save the money, because mm-hmm. they didn't want us to manage the septic. They want to do it themselves, and they don't want to pay the markup, because we're not a septic contractor. We're going to hire someone, and how do we make money? We oversee that and supervise it, and now we have to warranty it. Mm-hmm. So we're going to mark it up. And then they get stuck with something where they didn't understand that whole entire process. Yeah. The same thing with wells. So, and to speak to this with more certainty, if you're in an area where we've been operating in that area for, 12 months or more, mm-hmm. we probably know someone who can come in and do it for you, and we already built a relationship, and they've done hundreds of them for us.
Absolutely.
But if you're in a new area and we don't have that, we're very transparent about it. Like, hey, we don't know. We're happy to go out and find someone to do this and take control of it for you. But a lot of times people are like, well, I know, cousin Ricky, and mm-hmm. and he's got a guy that does septic. Cool. You can handle that yourself. We're not going to tell you no. We do recommend that you let us handle it, soup to nuts, because mm-hmm. in that case, if something goes wrong, we're liable. If you handle a piece of it yourself and then you're delivered with a product and you got a circumstance here to where you got to put in a pump or something, like, everyone wants to get mad at the builder, but the reality behind it is like, you chose to do this piece yourself.
Mm-hmm. And
it just wasn't taken into account. And you get certain circumstances where you may have a situation where you're building on a property, and the DHEC or the soil classifier, whatever it is in your state. South Carolina is the heck.
Mm-hmm.
But the Environmental Service Agency may say, hey, the maximum depth that you can do is 32 inches because of a water table or something like that. Cool. Well, if that's as deep as they can put a pipe or line, and then we build on the surface, you ain't gonna get the flow.
Yeah.
And so can you make it work? Sure, you can. But is it going to work in a conventional way? No.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the kind of things that you got to take into account in the beginning. And we do that now by the site visits that we do. We're going to come in and give you all these different price options. When it comes to your well, there's really no way to control that cost. You can get a quote, but it's really, hey, this is what we're going to charge you plus however many feet we have to drill to hit water or bore to hit water. So, it might have been a $7,000-$8,000 quote. It turns out to be $11,000 cost. How do you fix rate that? It's impossible. So we have to do some caveats to the contract where, hey, this is an allowance, this is a fixed rate price. And so we do that. So a lot of times homeowners will do their own well because there's not as much liability with the well as far as tying in because it has a pump.
Yeah.
Right? You're already pumping water to pressurize it to the house. So you don't deal with that. Now, what are some circumstances with a well? And why do we encourage people to do wells on their own? Well, you never know what kind of water you're going to hit. You don't know what's going to be involved in that. And so it becomes a situation where people kind of get lost in translation. And even though you build in some contingency funds in those contracts with the lender, most lenders always have some type of contingency. Let's just say that you did it and you dug your well and everything looks good. And then, part of that process is you got to have the environmental service come out and test the water before, they didn't know it's going to let you pump it into your house and it be infected or something. But you may have sulfur in your water and you need a green sand treatment. Well, that might be an $8,000 treatment. Who's paying for it? So like if it's something where you had us do it, then the way it's going to be built in is it's still your responsibility. We're still going to have to build in some contingency. If you did it yourself, then it's on you. So those are some anomalies that are in the thing. And the fact is we're building on different pieces of land. Like it's not a track home environment. We didn't go in and get, public water ran to every single lot. We don't have all this stuff. So these are just things you have to deal with. And these are things that you could incur additional costs with. Well, not as big a deal as septic in terms of connection, but the water quality falls on the homeowner. And so I would just be very, cautious of that. Like when you're doing a well, like, hey, once they hit water, go ahead and get the test done. Like understand, like what is the water quality here? They can do it or they can hire someone to do it for you, but it's going to get done at some point. And if there's something wrong with it, it may be as simple as, and this sounds crazy to me, and I don't know all the science behind it, but like pour a gallon of bleach in your tank, right? Cool. Like I don't know what that looks like, but that's I know that's what they do. It may be that you need ultraviolet lights on it. It may be that you need a green sand filter. It may be you need a sediment filter. There's a plethora of things that could go on when you're pulling water out of the ground, and so that's a caveat. The septic side is, you're either going to have a conventional system, an engineered system, or you're going to have a conventional system with a pump. Yeah. And all that's dependent on understanding where you're building in relation to the septic, what needs to be taken into account to have the best conditions, and is that budgeted and tied in? So again, on the septic side, I would say you're always in favor or always more protected to allow the contractor to come in and do it for you. We don't hold a gun to your head in that situation, but it does. In any instance where we've had issues with expectations and experience has been when the homeowner elected to do it themselves to save money, and then they encountered some kind of hiccup along the way where that was their problem. It's not going to prohibit you from moving into the home, but it may be some additional steps.
Gotcha. So shifting gears a little bit into SFH, what all is included in our SFH houses? Because we had someone ask if concrete was included.
Everything's included. So on the SFH line, what we did there is we took some of our most popular plans and we looked at, with interest rates being where they are, and some people would sacrifice the I wouldn't say quality is not the word, but the superiority of a Barndo build for the space, because your family's your family and you know what kind of space you need, and you might be able to get a more quality built structure with a superior strength and everything else and better features or whatever, but it limits you by 600 or 700 square foot, and you're like, man, I would rather have the space. So we developed SFH as a more cost effective way for people who were victims of the current state of inflation in the country,
Mhm.
to where, hey, if rates are the reason you can't get here because everybody's basing their decisions off of their monthly payment,
Mhm.
then let's look at SFH for you. Does it get you into the home that's the size? And, what is your limiting factor? Is
Mhm.
it quality of construction or superiority of construction method, or is it space?
Mhm.
If it's space, SFH is for you. And so what we did is we went in and we figured out what's the most cost effective way to build this plan, because people love the plan and they
Mhm.
love the space and it would fit their family well. And so we didn't diminish any interior features. So
Mhm.
all the interior finishes are basically the same. Ceiling height's a little different.
Yeah.
Um, but on the exterior of that home, it's a whole different ballgame. That home's going to be built out of 2x4 construction with batt insulation.
Mhm.
That's a huge difference. They're vinyl siding and shingle roofs in the base pricing. Now you can upgrade those things, but that's the base price. And
Mhm.
again, it was what could we limit to not diminish the quality of living in the home and not diminish the size of the home, but still deliver something that fits the needs of your family.
Yeah.
And so that pricing, when they see it on there, is all inclusive. It's also including the grading of the pad.
Mhm.
It does not include your mass grading.
Mhm.
It does not include, cutting in a construction access or a driveway or sidewalks or any of those additional things,
Yeah.
landscaping. But it includes everything that needs to be there to build that house.
Mhm.
And so it's all encompassing. So I think a lot of times people see it and they kind of get sticker shock of like, whoa, it's got to be missing something. It's not. It's literally the difference between conventional construction and
Mhm.
what we typically build.
Yeah.
And so when you see it that way, and now that we own a product line that's comparable to what other builders offer, you see a massive price incentive, right? Because it's just not built the same.
Mhm.
And so what are the differences? It's the exterior finishes, and it's the wall thickness and the insulation properties of it. Does it still meet code? Yep. Is it
Mhm.
still comparable to everything else on the market? Sure.
Absolutely.
But it's just not the superior quality of a barndominium. So that's where the cost savings is coming in.
Mhm.
Still same cabinet line, still same flooring line, still same paint, still same drywall, still same HVAC, still same everything else.
Everything.
But you're losing what makes barndominiums different.
Mhm.
And it's not really a loss to you if the space is what's necessary for your family to thrive. You can still have a nice home.
Mhm.
It's just built different.
And there's still upgrade options to where
Yeah.
you can get closer to that Barndo superiority,
Yeah.
So, all right. So moving into my next question, we had someone ask, are VA home loans accepted for your barndominiums?
Yes. Yes.
So go into that a little bit.
So the VA process is not a fun process for builders.
Mhm.
It's rewarding because you're helping veterans, right?
Absolutely,
So, but it is a lengthy process, and it's really not that bad. It's just additional steps, and the reason it's additional steps is because the government's involved and they're handling a lot of the cost to the client. And so, it was a lot to get set up, but we are a fully VA accredited builder in every state we build in.
Mhm.
And so you could come to us with a VA construction loan. You could purchase a home that we build as a spec model, and you can buy it with a VA loan.
Mhm.
Everything checks the boxes for the VA. It's just a little bit different process when you're going through there and you're figuring out all the carrying costs. And so in a VA situation, the clients are not allowed to pay their closing costs
Mhm.
or the interest payments for the duration of the construction, and so we build all that into the price.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where we're obligated to carry their costs during construction. So we charge for those costs in our construction. And it's not as easy as just saying like, well, this is what it is. Let's add a line item that says VA costs. It doesn't work
Mhm.
that way. But we know, hey, these are additional costs that go into a VA. It doesn't really affect the person benefiting from the VA loan because
Yeah.
you're getting tons of perks to where, hey, the price of your home is going to be a little bit higher because there's
Mhm.
some additional costs involved in it. But the way that the program's structured, you're able to come in and still compete and have little to nothing out of pocket and have very, 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 very favorable payment conditions
Mhm.
and terms to where to them, it's just finding a builder that'll work with them on that program. And a lot of builders won't do it. And I think the reason behind it is one, there's massive stipulation around like the people think that the VA is bad. It's
Yeah.
not.
Mhm.
It's now there's a lot of bureaucracy in it. And it does make it a little difficult, but it's serving a great purpose. And so
Absolutely.
we've always been committed to holding that line and working with great lenders. Even our main lending partner, Prime, is a
Mhm.
VA accredited lender. Like they can build VA programs. They can do this. We work with a multitude of only VA loan officers that have a massive magnet and reach to the veteran community. And so we've just made it something that we always offer, and we build a significant amount of VA funded barndominiums. And at one time, we had a couple lenders tell us we're the only barndominium builder that they knew that was VA accredited builder and or had a VA number to build. I don't know if there's an accreditation to it, but I don't think that we're the only one. That would be arrogant, but I know that we're one of few.
Yes.
And for us, it's worth it. It's worth the additional paperwork. It's worth the additional hassles. Worth the additional calculations. It's worth the additional stuff because we're able to provide the same experience to a veteran. And to me, it's worth it. Like there's no risk to it. It's just additional work, and we're always willing to do it.
Absolutely. So we're going to switch gears again.
Let's do it.
And so this one might be a little bit longer, but what is the process to build on your own land?
With us?
Just in general with us. What does that process look like starting from the beginning?
So, so starting from the beginning would be this. One is figure out, do you have a recent survey of the property, right? If you don't, get one. And if you're getting one, go ahead and get one that's topographical. It's a little bit more money, but man, does it serve you well. So when you get your survey done, you want to have a very recent one. A lot of times we deal with people who have inherited land, or they bought land that was farmland, agricultural land that's being broken up into smaller segments and sold. And there's things that go into that. There's rollback taxes. And it depends on the municipality, but there's different things that fall into it that you should be aware of. Like the moment that you take something that's been homestead or agricultural and they're getting all these tax exemptions, there is in a lot of counties, in a lot of states, a rollback tax where they go back and say, hey, well, the moment you incorporate it to a residential, you're now going to go back and pay the rollback taxes on this for the last so many years to make the county whole on it. And I guess the justification behind it is now they're running utilities or whatever. I don't know. There's a justification, right? Taxes theft. But that's one big thing. It's like being an educated consumer. There are some stipulations with that. And if you don't have a survey that was done within the last 3 years, I'd say 10 years maximum, get a survey. And when you get your survey company, ask them to do a topographical survey. And it's going to do a couple things, because we're not, sometimes we're dealing with people that have a 2 or 3 acre plot of land, but a lot of times we're dealing with people with 100 plus acres. And there's a lot going on. There's a big story to be told about this 100 something acres. And so if you have a topographical survey and it's recent and up to date, we're going to have all the current setbacks. We're going to have copies of all recorded structures on there. Are there any easements on this property? Are there delineated streams on this property that you were planning to cross with a driveway? Because now if it's a delineated stream and you just want to put a driveway across it, now the EPA has to get involved, right? They got to come out there and say, yeah, we'll sign off on this for you to be able to put a culvert in and create an impound to go across this stream. And that sounds insignificant, but it's massively significant. And so having that updated survey will serve as a great foundation for your site visit and understanding things, because we can look at it and we can tell by the lay of the land. You want to build it at a high point. You want water running away from your property. So we can, pretty easily notice where those areas are, and we can find the most adequate places to do it. Also, when you start getting DHEC or the environmental agencies involved for your septic situation or your well, you got a 100-acre field, you call those guys out there, well, they're just going to perk, right? They're just going to say, well, we perked. This is where your septic goes. And then you're like, well, that ain't where I wanted it to go. So understanding where is suitable building places on that land gives you the ability to be in control from the very beginning. And you never have to go back and repeat a process. And you never have to have your dream completely dismantled, because you already did some research on the front end and understand what's necessary to access the place where I want to put my home. There may be a beautiful knoll with a great view somewhere on your property, but you got to put in, a mile-long driveway. That's $200,000 worth of work that if it's not in your budget, What are you going to do? Like,
Yep.
and so I think having that gives us the ability to really see a clear, crystal clear snapshot of what's going on. Another cool thing about the topographical survey would be that we can use it when we're designing your home. If we know that where the home's going, there's fall or there's buildup needed or a basement lot or anything like that, like we have access to data to where we can model that in the design software to get a more reasonable, accurate picture of what it's going to be like. And so that goes a long, long way. Not to mention a lot of municipalities now are requiring a survey as recent as the last 3 years to pull permits. And so if you already have the land, go ahead and get it done. It's better to have it not need it than need it not have it, and then it delays the process, and then now it's an incurred expense that you weren't planning on. Those are the kind of things. And again, more rural areas, a little less likely that it's going to become like something that encumbers you from doing this. But in areas where you're starting to see growth, the counties are trying to plan for that growth, and so they want those things so they understand what's going on in there and are there limitations. Like we have counties here in the upstate of South Carolina that have significantly limited the ability to divide land. Sometimes people get land and they're like, we're going to build a family compound. Well, you better figure out what your county's going to allow and not allow. Like flag lots where you could have, you had 300 foot of road access. And so you put your house here and you're like, well, I'm just going to put some little flag driveways that come off and then I'm going to build my kids back there now. Well, there's 2 counties here in the upstate, 2 most prominent ones that won't even let you do a flag lot anymore. There's counties here now that doesn't matter how big the tract of land is, they won't let you subdivide it more than 5 times. There's counties here that won't let you subdivide it into anything less than a 5-acre parcel. There's all kinds of stuff that the government's involved in now to to try to slow down some of the, the stuff that has become cumbersome over time, where they've allowed all this stuff to happen. And now they're in an expansion process and the DOT is like, well, we can't allow you to develop this because if we put the road access necessary to get to it, now you got all these flag lots. We can't unless you go buy this other property because we can't put a curve here because there's driveways here. There's a lot that goes into it. And again, certain parts of the country, you're never going to encounter that. But in thriving areas like here in the Southeast, these are all things they're thinking about. So I say that's first and foremost. Get a recent survey, and if you're going to pay to get one, pay the extra money to get topographical because it's going to serve you well. The next thing would be understanding your utilities. What are your options? We have people that come to us and they're like, yeah, there's natural gas out here. Where? Is it on the other side of the road or this side of the road? Because if it's on the other side of the road, yeah, it may be here, but they got to come out and they got to flag the road down. Then they got to bore under the county road and get it to this side. And is it something that's unheard of? No, they do it all the time, but it's another step in the process, another set of fees. Hey, we have public water. Cool. Well, by the time you look at it and say, well, we've got, city water out here, you put your tap in and you run it 900 feet to your home, it might have been more cost advantage to you to put a well in. So understanding what utilities are there, where they're coming from, and who the utility providers are. You need to know this. This is homeowner homework, right? Who is the power company? Awesome. You have the name of the company? Write that down. Call them. Hey, we just bought this land and we're planning to build out here. What does it look like for us to get power to our property? If you're working with one of the bigger companies, a lot of times they'll run a significant amount of that at no cost to you. Sometimes if you're in one of these smaller co-ops that are buying power from a bigger power company, they'll not do that. They'll charge you to come in and provide that service. And there may be limitations to it. And you may be thinking, well, I'm this close to the road, but the power may not be on that little country road. It may be over here and they're running it through the backside of your property. So it's just better to understand what's available. So what's homeowner homework? Surveys, who are the utility companies, and what do I need? You may have natural gas, but again, if you're building a mile off the road, put propane in. It's going to save you money. So those are just some of the things to think about. And then beyond that is have reasonable expectations and be willing to shift those expectations. So when you onboard with us, one of the first things is a site visit, and those have improved so much over the years to the point now to where when Billy issues that to the project manager, they're going out there and they've got a whole checklist of stuff that they're looking at. They're going in and they're seeing like, hey, what's the access to the property? Is this access, adequate for us to be able to get transfer trucks in and out of here? Can we get concrete trucks in here? Is it an adequate drive? A lot of times people are buying this and there's an old road that's already cut in. Awesome. Is there elevation shifts in that road? Are we going to need to bring in different kinds of stones so we can get traction to get a 60,000-pound concrete truck up that hill to the build site? All those things matter. And then beyond that is like what are the soils out there? You know, you're going to have to call DHEC or the local environmental agency to get your septic perked. It's better to understand, like, what are we looking like? You know, if you bought land in Eastern Tennessee and there's limestone on it, we better be looking for the place that doesn't have some, because it's expensive. It's expensive to get rid of it. So that's homeowner homework is know your land, get the boundary surveyed, get a topographical survey included in that so you know truly what you own, and then start building a game plan from, okay, I now know the limitations topographically. I now know the limitations with the boundaries and the setbacks that are upheld by the county or the municipality I'm in. I now know that I've got these resources for my utilities, and I can build a game plan now, right? So just doing that little bit of homework will eliminate 80% of possibilities, and now you're looking at a 20% possibility of where this home could go. That fits budget, that fits needs, that fits DHEC, that fits setbacks and restrictions, and it makes it so much simpler. And then when your site visit is conducted, it's a much easier process because often this time project managers go out there and they spend 2 hours riding around on four-wheelers looking at different locations, and they're like, well, I mean, this would be beautiful, but you know, it's $200,000 to get here. It cuts down on a little bit of that. So those would, in my mind, are the most important things. The second thing that I'll throw in there is a caveat, and this is not a requirement to build, but this is just to educate you as a consumer. Understand your local municipality's tax, because you may have bought this huge tract of land. There may be an advantage to you when you have that survey done to survey out a smaller section of land that you build your home on, especially if you're utilizing financing. Because if something were to happen, you don't want to be liable that if something happened here, I lose all of this. That's a negative collateral situation. Let's look at what it would look like to survey out a 5-acre parcel or a 1-acre parcel in the middle of this land, because your local municipality may have an infrastructure where you bought 6 acres, 5 acres, and more is tax exempt. Well, cool. I'm going to get an updated survey. I'm going to cut out an acre in the middle of it, right? Everything matches. Cool. Now I've got an acre that my house sits on, and the other 5 acres are now continuing in the agricultural tax exemption. I'll put me some cows out there. So there's a lot of things you could do as homeowner homework to put you in a better success environment. It's just understanding it. And don't come to us to explain all that to you. We're not tax experts. It's really easy. It's just you need someone that will trigger your brain to go and do the research. And honestly, you could do it in a couple of hours in one afternoon, and you would have all this information. You know, and it's better to just incur those costs for the survey, because even if you have one and it was done in the last 10 years, you should get a new one. And if you're really smart and you're looking at land and you're looking at massive tracts of land to purchase, you can even sometimes make that part of the deal. I need the seller to provide me an updated survey to make sure that I'm buying 97 acres, because it says 97 acres, but the reality is might not be. And, you know, so get that updated survey, and that sets you up for success.
Awesome. And so that kind of goes into our next and last question. What is the classification of my land so that it accepts a barndominium?
I don't know. It depends highly on where you live. I don't know that there's a specific classification that would disqualify it. It would be, is it zoned for residential construction? And every county and every state has a different way they zone this stuff. Like it could be R this or IR. There's so many blends. You know, if you went down into a commercial or industrial park and bought land, chances are they're not letting you build a house there because it's been zoned for something different. But if you look at the zoning, right, which is going to determine the classification of that property, your zoning requirements, as long as they include residential, you can build a barndominium there. The only caveat would be is if there were covenants and restrictions to that piece of property because it was developed as a part of a development or part of a community, or there were some restrictions put in place that have carried throughout time with that property. That specifically excludes certain materials, it may change the way you do it. There's nothing that's going to change the way we build it unless you're in a part of the country where it says, hey, it has to be, you know, concrete block. Or something of that nature. But you could build a post frame home and put brick on it. We had somebody in a country club that came to us and like, we want to build your home, and we got to put brick. And we're like, well, we can do it. And I don't know what happens to that. That was a conversation about 6 months ago with one of the sales agents. We may be building that home.
Yeah.
But we have people all the time that are in these neighborhoods and they really want to build, and we might have to put hardy siding on it or something. So CC&Rs are a little bit different. Your covenants and restrictions that carry with land that's been divided out. But as far as zoning by the municipality, if it encompasses residential in it, you can build a barndominium there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, that's all I got today.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is fun. This is fun. We need to just do an episode where it's just you. Like, let everybody see Jenna.
Well, I don't know if everyone wants to see just Jenna.
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great. So let's talk about something else, because, we're in this, like, massive season of growth, and we're in this, like, expansion of everything in the company, and you got, like, a whole new hemisphere of power. So what's that been like? You're now the marketing manager of the entire organization, and hiring a team and building out a team to help you lead everything inside of marketing. And what's that been like?
It is absolutely amazing. I love it. I'm just doing because all of our sales agents, they are bringing ideas and bringing ideas and bringing ideas. So moving into this position, I'm able to really like take charge on it and get it done. So like some of the things that I'm doing is some build outs that we're going to do in our showrooms. So us versus them. So like the way that we build versus other builders. So, with our 2x6 posts and our spray foam versus 2x4 framing and bat insulation. So just build outs like that, and just some really cool marketing opportunities, like really cool signs for families in areas like Conway that are growing extremely fast. So finding clients in those areas to help them get their dreams. So it's just been really cool to take that direction. So I love it.
Well, the landscape of the marketing department changed vastly when we decided to go in all these different states and all these different areas. So you're like fielding all kinds of stuff, and it was fun because you've been here almost a year.
Yep. It'll be a year, November 2nd.
November 2nd.
Yep.
So next Saturday. But think about the journey in a year. You came in as a marketing assistant working directly under me because I was still kind of running marketing.
Well, let's start before that, because I came in and interviewed for a part-time office assistant. And here I am, marketing manager. So it's just it's so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome to see you step into that, and we were talking yesterday, like you're running some ads and stuff to grow your team and do all that stuff, and you're incredibly busy, and you got all these like amazing
all over the place.
The marketing plan is substantial now. With all the different things that you're managing. Now I'm fighting for you to keep you in the podcast. You're like, I don't got time for podcasts no more. I'm like,
oh, we got to wrap this one.
But no, it's just been really cool. It's rewarding, and to see this, and you graduated college a year ago.
Yeah. Yep.
And then stepped in and just in a short year, changed everything.
Just the growth that I've had, even joining the leadership team, it's just like the growth I've seen in myself personally has been absolutely everything I would have never imagined. We're doing 75 hard right now. I'm reading books when I haven't read books since it was required for class, So just reading these books and making myself better for the company, for my family, for my fiance, for even my dogs, because I'm a pet mom now. So, so even I've just seen a huge growth in myself over this past year, just in every aspect of my life. And it's so different from college because that was just a completely different experience, but it's awesome. And I love the person who I am today, and I'm keep growing into that person.
Yeah. So it's been incredibly cool to see it. Like, I think everybody that comes in has a journey that they go on, but like yours was so fast accelerated because
extremely.
Well, from a marketing standpoint, that's kind of like where I've been. And the objective was TJ's got to get out of that. Like, and you came in and kind of in there, and then with the mic, integration, him as COO, and like your direct report kind of changed to where now you report to Mike, and like through all of those things, you've just excelled. And then like the whole dynamic of the company today versus a year ago is completely different. I can remember
180
you doing a brainstorming session where I'm writing things on the board that didn't exist that now do exist.
Yep.
And you've been able to come in and champion that and build out some incredible marketing, and everything is about client experience. Every idea I come in there and you guys are cooking up something and I'm like, this is going to make it so much better.
Well, like I was saying earlier, I'm interviewing a couple clients right now, sending out surveys. I just want to learn about their experience so I can start working to make that better.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. Awesome. And then you hit 75 hard. Whew. What's today? 54?
Day 54.
Day 54. Yeah. You're still in there.
We're still in there.
Yeah.
Still pushing through.
Yeah, it's been good.
Super close.
Yeah, it's been fun.
November 14th. I'm looking forward to.
The cool thing is this is like to see someone like you come in young, straight out of college, ambitious. You had no idea that on the other side of the interview was something like this. But you take the reins and like, and we've built an environment where someone like you could come in and just have accelerated growth, and where you sit on a leadership type team of 5 people in a company of 50 plus employees, to where you're making executive decisions. And I guess for me, it's an experience to where I'm proud that we've built an environment where someone like you could walk in and immediately kind of get integrated in something like that. And
yeah, I mean, it's been absolutely amazing. And I couldn't be more thankful for that opportunity, because like I said, it's just nothing that I could have ever imagined I would be sitting at, and I'm not even 23 yet. So, so it's just absolutely amazing. Just the self-growth.
Yeah. Now, I was talking about that with Haley, who's my executive assistant, and she's 23.
She is, yep.
About to be 24. And we were talking about like how many young people are inside the company, and a lot of young women inside the company. And it's really, really cool to have built something where that platform exists, and you guys are crushing it. And like, we talked about Lexi. Me and Ross did an interview about Lexi taking the transition out. Lexi's about the same age as you.
Yep.
22 or 23. And she, came in, and now she's stepping into this new opportunity as like a selections manager, owning the showroom, and just seeing people be able to build that pathway to success. And it's not like we just gave it to you. You went out and got it. And that's just something that, like, if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur and you're wondering, like, how do they attract such top talent? What you have to do is build a company to where the opportunity exists, and then put people in place that want to go get it.
Well, I would say, like, one of the biggest things that's like been so amazing about this company is the culture. Because, like, I mean, playing sports, culture will be all over the place. And so you may think that there's culture, but there might not actually be that culture, and it's just toxic. But working here, it's kind of reevaluated that in my brain, is like, this is culture. We follow culture every single day. Every single employee inside that company follows that culture. And if you don't, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb, and you're going to get pushed out by yourself. Yep. So that's awesome.
Well, I appreciate you coming here and doing this Q&A with me, and you groomed through all this stuff. And if you guys are reaching out to us through social media or any of the means that are out there, it's all running through Jenna, and that's why Jenna's hiring a team, because she's like, this is absolutely overwhelming.
We'll catch it.
Yeah, she's like, TJ, there's 2,000 people a week that are sending me messages.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see the team that you build. You're absolutely the person to lead it, and I'm pumped. And I hope you still come back and do podcast stuff with me, even though you're shifting out of it. You're trying to run away. Trying to run away from the Barndo Show.
I could never run away.
All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Barndo Show Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this content, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then be sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms at the Barndo Co. Super simple to find us. And then when you're ready to dive in a little more, maybe look around some of our available floor plan options, or take a look at the gallery of our work, or maybe you're ready to connect with our team and explore what it looks like to build your dream barndominium, you can visit us online at thebarndoco.com.